Political parties, part 2. Let's go. Development and evolution of party systems. The Democrat Party is the oldest political party in the world. The first party system, that's 1789, 1824, that's the creation of parties. George Washington was non-party, no party, he was non-affiliated. The first party system is Democrat-Republicans versus the Federalists. I don't know why I have those sockets up there. I forget. It's too late. I'm moving on. Burned out? Maybe something got burned out. Shorted? Short circuit? I don't know. Moving on. Andrew Jackson, 1828. Him and Martin Van Buren founding the Democrat Party. It's the same party that has produced people like LBJ and JFK. The same party that has produced modern presidents such as Barack Obama and, of course, Vice President Joe Biden. Second party system, 1824-1860. So I got a list of presidents up there. Let's check it out. That's the Democrat-Republicans. That's the era of good feelings, and that ends with Jackson's election. There was a time during Monroe's presidency, people thought that was just like the end of parties, and that ended in 1824 with the corrupt deal. So there's Democrat-Republican. Let's move on. Democrat, that's Jackson and Van Buren. He's the 8th president of the United States from Old Kinderhook, New York. Democrat. 1828, they showed the importance of organization. 1832 was the first national party convention. Of course, the Democrats did it, and then eventually the Whigs, and then the Republicans were going to follow suit. But party convention is like a gigantic pep rally. It's where the leaders of the party get together to actually nominate a candidate. See, between 1792 and 1828, presidential candidates were essentially selected by congressional caucuses. That changed with Jackson. When he was running for re-election in 1832, he started the Democrat Party, Whigs, and the Republicans would follow suit in having party conventions officially nominate their presidential candidates. After the 70s, because of some crazy stuff happening at the Democrat convention in 1968, from 72 onward, presidential candidates would be nominated by state primaries and caucuses, and then the convention was just like a rubber stamp of approval, but you essentially knew who was going to win the nomination before you got to the convention. It wasn't always like that. In 2016, you have the Trump and Sanders effect, which is what I'm calling it, where the party's trying to take back some control from the voters who are very rambunctious. And you can see, like, for Trump, all the established Republicans hated Trump. And the established Democrats hated Sanders. The established ones like backed Hillary for the Democrat side, and then the establishment Republicans were really going for like probably Kasich or Jeb Bush. I mean, honestly, no one really liked Trump, and honestly, nobody really liked Cruz either. But what I'm saying is, like, the Trump-Sanders effect is like that they had personal connections with the voters, and the party, the establishment people in the party did not like that. Third party system, entrepreneurial politics. So this is things like the Masons, the anti-Masons, the know-nothings. And I have Gangs of New York. If you're not busy, you should watch that movie. I mean, it's good. I think Daniel Day-Lewis won an Academy Award. It's a pretty good movie. It's a realistic representation of all the crazy stuff that was going on in New York City in the 1860s. They also it depicts the New York City draft riots, which are the biggest riots in American history. Election 1840 extended a two-party system to every state. So this is in the first time of their history. This is the Whigs. They held a national convention to determine their presidential candidate. It was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, December 4th, 1839, almost a full year before the election. The three leading candidates were William Henry Harrison. He was eventually going to win. He was a war hero and had the most successful of Van Buren's opponents in the 1936 election, who had been campaigning for the Whig nomination ever since. So Van Buren won in 36. Harrison was going to win in 1840, and he was the shortest president. Had the shortest time in office. Third parties almost always split off one of the two major parties, mostly unsuccessful. Except for the Republicans, they split off the Whigs and actually became immensely successful, still existing today, actually holding the House, the Senate, and the presidency today. Okay, so let's check it out. Just want you to see this graphically. No party for Washington, Federalist for Adams, Democrat, Republican for Jefferson, Madison, up until Jackson, Democrat for Andrew Jackson, and then the Whigs. And then it's really Democrat versus Republican. After that, 1854 Republicans get founded, and then that's Lincoln. He wins 1860. I'm pretty sure Pierce is the last Whig president, and then maybe it's Taylor. Oh, I should have done some research. My fault. But anyway, it's Republicans and Democrats ever since 1954. Okay, so here's your two-party system. You can see the donkeys and elephants up top, and then there's all your notable third parties down below. There's really not any successful third party actually winning elections, although Prohibition, 18th Amendment to 21st Amendment, 1920, 1933, they were successful in getting an amendment, but as far as like gaining national office, unsuccessful. Republican Party founded in 1854. They organized opposition to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed for popular sovereignty, to have people settling in Kansas and Nebraska choose themselves whether or not they wanted to have slavery in those territories. So the Republican Party was originally made up of abolitionists, free soilers, and disgruntled Whigs. There's a lot of different places that claim they are the birthplace of the Republican Party. Moving on. Age of the machine. This is the party machine. Okay, it's big time in big cities, especially New York City. New York City is the best example of it. Party members and officials exchange services for votes. So one of the best examples of this is Boss Tweed. Hey, there's a party machine. This is Tammany Hall. Now there's little question that the Boss Tweed and the Tweed Ring were outright thieves, and that Tammany Hall in New York City did have a series of recurring scandals. It was an estimated $75 to $200 million were swindled from the city between 1865 and 1871. I'm going to repeat that: $75 to $200 million. In the end, Tweed was convicted of stealing an amount estimated by an alderman's committee in 1877 between about $25 million and $45 million from New York City taxpayers through political corruption. Later estimates, though, range as high as $200 million. Unable to make bail, he escaped from jail once, but was returned to custody. He later died in jail. But he was really the symbol of corruption and graft. There he is. There's some graft as well. But that's William Boss Tweed at the top right. what is graft? Graft is political corruption where officials gain some kind of benefit as a result of their position. So what the party machine in New York City would do is they'd there's a whole bunch of like Irish immigrants coming over at the time, so they just get them right off the boat, and they'd say, "Hey, you need a job? You need a place to live? You know, you want to meet some women? Like, what's up? Hey, vote for me. Vote for me, though." And that's how they basically secured their re-election over and over and over and over. There's the Irish coming to America. They were basically exploited by the Tweed ring. I got most of that information. I mean, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, political corruption, the graft, and that kind of stuff, you should read Plunkett of Tammany Hall. It's a really good book. So I'll just quote him right here. "It's not hard to admire the skill behind Tweed's system. The Tweed ring at its height was an engineering marvel, strong and solid, strategically deployed to control key power points, the courts, the legislature, the treasury, and the ballot box. Its frauds had grandeur of scale and an elegance of structure, money laundering, profit sharing, and organization." I mean, it was like running an organized crime family, but being part of the government doing it. So what happened? Yeah, people got mad at that. So party machines actually led to the progressive era. People wanted a clean house. Look at that Dyson. If I had more money, I would totally get a Dyson. What are some of the ways they tried to clean up politics in the early 1900s? Well, the Australian, aka secret ballot. This allowed for privacy in elections because you could split your ticket. Well, I mean, one of the things you could do is split your ticket. But this allowed for people not knowing who you voted for. Because one of the things that the politicians during the party machine era and the Tweed ring would do is find out who you vote for. If you voted for the wrong guy, they would beat you. They would beat you up. They would literally threaten you with violence. So secret ballots are good because you're under no obligation to tell someone who you vote for. It's your choice. If you want to say it, you can. If not, you don't have to. Another thing, progressive era, primary elections. This is where a party's voters get to control who's nominated instead of the party itself. Why do I have electrical tools? This was the beginning of the shift from party-centered politics to candidate-centered politics. Also, in this era, the initiative and the referendum. The initiative means a certain number of signatures will get an issue right directly on the ballot. So you can vote for your politicians who are up for election. You can also vote on a specific issue. The voters, the public, can bypass the legislature completely. Also, the referendum. This is where a certain number of signatures will get a law already passed on a ballot to be potentially voted down by the public. So if the public doesn't like a law passed by the state legislature, a referendum will allow the public to circumvent the legislature and strike down a law passed by the state legislature. Some states have that, other states don't. The progressive era actually brought the decline of voter turnout. Women got suffrage in 1920 with the 19th Amendment, bringing the turnout down to 60%. In fact, so you have a new electorate created, but many declined to vote, saying politics was men's business. And that's the end of part 2.